Do we all have to say yes? Or
You have to agree to that.
Continue.
You have to agree to be recorded or log out or something. Okay, now I shall be sharing my screen and going through a demonstration of Git. I'll keep it fairly short. I'm not going to get very far with it. I'm certainly not going to get as far as GitHub, but I will get as far as creating a repository and creating a file and putting it in it and changing the file and putting it back. And then we'll stop for general questions. And so without further ado, share. So I'm currently running an unix 6 and using VNC. I'm sharing it to the Mac Mini, and the Mac Mini is running the Zoom session and is sharing the screen. So that's what's going on. A window, a strong edge window, using a mode that I've written for presentations. It does big writing. If I were to switch that from JR large to base mode, that's how we normally see it. I'll switch it to JR large. The way it looks. Got each of these is a slide effectively, and when I click on this red arrow, it will expand itself, unfold.
Very neat.
It's quite nice, isn't it? You get colours and sizes. So there are two that I know of, RISC OS Git clients. That's something I've learnt in the last week, because when I was talking to Doug last week, we thought there was only one, and we thought we were both using the same one, but in fact Doug was using Simple Git and I was using Git. So it's still a bit of a mystery. Git is written by Kevin Swinton. I don't know Kevin, but he's been back on, he used to be on the RISC OS scene and disappeared for a long time, and has came back about 2 years ago. And he seems to be pretty clever, low-level sort of programmer. He's published this link here, which you can see in green, and as far as I know, it's in the public domain, so I've reproduced it. You can download Git from there, and that's what I've done. And as it says, after shriek Git has been seen, you can use Git commands in a task window by typing Git. I'll just do that. There you go. I'll close that out. Now you see it, now you don't. There's not much more to say. Simple Git, install via Pacman. Let's just go to Pacman. Simple Git dash libgit2. Doug showed me that last week. And you can see it's normally installed in development apps.development.simplegit. And I'll close that and I'll go back to that one. Once you've installed it and the system has seen it, you can use Git commands in a task window. This time you type sgit. I'll demonstrate that. And you can see I'll put up another task window. This is where I got the clue that they weren't the same thing. I mean, on the face of it, you might think you want to use Simple Git because it's got a lot more stuff in it. But I think for beginners, I rather felt that Git had more to offer. More is less.
Yeah.
I don't know, really, I haven't done enough work to find out which one is buggier than which. I do know that Simple Git was developed for the Amiga, I think. It's not a RISC OS specific, although it has been ported to RISC OS. Now, I know that Git was written specifically for RISC OS by Kevin. I don't know who wrote the Simple Git.
Yeah, and there is a bounty for a Git source client, control client that's supposed to be used libgit2 as the base.
That's the same as both of these are on libgit2.
Yeah.
And I think Kevin has taken up the bounty.
Right, okay. Well, that sounds good.
Well, Yes and no. He's been fairly quiet for 6 months, but he was writing on the rule form mentioning the bounty. So and it does say on the bounty, if you look it up, that the bounty has been started. Bounties. Can you see that? Git source control client.
Yeah.
Somewhere I didn't see the status. Oh, there it is. The status is underway. I believe that is Kevin, but I don't know. I tried to find out.
Oh, he has been quiet then, John, for 6 months.
There we are. So that's Git and simple Git. And go on to the next thing, which is, this one is a bit controversial. Command line commands. I've decided to do this demonstration using the command line, entirely using the command line, because I thought it would stop me changing screens and confusing people. But the real point is that Git is a command line application. There's no two ways about it. If you don't like command line, get out of Git. So here we go, command line. However, because the RISC OS command line configured it to use Unix, it's very straightforward. And I'm using them in this demo in preference to the native RISC OS equivalents, i.e. I'm using ls rather than cat. I'll just demonstrate that immediately, just to see why. If I say cat, it does that, but if I just do, it makes a mess. If I say ls, it doesn't make a mess. So I really do prefer that Unix commands behave properly. The RISC OS command line commands, they were never developed because RISC OS had such a super GUI and no one thought it was worth the bother, I think. So that's why I'm using Unix. So it gives me a consistency with other platforms. And I do use Linux and Windows and the Mac, and they all use Unix commands on the command line. There are slight differences, but on the whole, the same commands work across all of those. So I've configured RISC OS to use the same ones. It's not difficult. It says here, most of the Unix commands are supplied by core utils. Over here, you see under apps.utilities, there is a thing called core utils. And if I open up core utils, inside core utils, you've got all these absolutes, I think they're called. I think they're absolutes. Yeah, absolute. These are executables, and each of these executables is a command. And if you look at, for example, touch, that one, that supports the touch command for creating files. That's very handy, I think. And type. Who am I? Oh, I'm RISC OS.
Big deal.
And here's some examples. Make dir instead of dir. Let's just go F12, ls. I appear to be in root, that doesn't matter. mkdir space deleteme, delete me. And do an ls again. Somewhere there should be a file. I can't see it.
Because you've got your currently selected directory, haven't you? So you
first column, just one up from the bottom. Yeah.
Ah, there it is. Yeah. Ah, of course it goes down and then down, then down and down. Thanks. All right. So rm delete. You can't do that without doing a minus d. Gone. That's just a little demonstration of the Unix commands work perfectly well in RISC OS. There are a few funnies. I'm not going to go into those, but on the whole, it's worth exploring. There's a slight glitch in that you can't change directory. You can't use cd because cd isn't in core utils. CD is a Unix or Linux built in. So in order to get CD, I've set up an alias. I've aliased CD to dir. If I just go to my system, and this is my setup when I boot. And there's the alias there. So alias CD. If the pass parameter is ... then up. If the a minus, then back, else go to the dir again. Right, so that's how CD is implemented. So if I just go to Control F12 and do, I'll do a cat. Funnily enough, cat off. This is not LCAT. Cat is a RISC OS one, but it does tell you what the CSD is. So it tells you I'm in the root. So if I do what I was looking at, I forgot, I've lost track of CD. Yes, CD, change directory to JR. And do I do a cat again. And I'm in JR, it seems. And I don't know the way cat works. It splats everything everywhere. Well, you could just do a show star CSD, I suppose, and it will show you that the CSD is JR. That's the neater way of doing it than doing a cat. Okay, enough of command lines. Any questions on that sort of aspect before we get on to Git? Get rid of that. Next item, set up a directory for a Git demo. Make sure Git has been seen. Open a task window. Change to working directory Git work. Okay, so there's how you do it. CD to the root. List the files. Change directory to jr.gitwork. So I'll do that. This is already set up, the Git work, so let's do a CD $. We're in the root, just do an ls to prove it. Yep. You can see that the boot up there, and there's a JR folder there. CD JR ls to see what's in it, and there should be a Git work there somewhere. There it is, Git work. So CD GITWORK. I must point out I'm cheating a bit. I don't know if CD Git work would work in Linux because Git work is spelt with a capital G, and I believe that Linux would insist that I say capital G. I don't know, but RISC OS doesn't mind. So we're in Git work. I'm going to just rm space -d test. We're in Git work, and it's got demo and readme in it. The readme is this thing up here. That's the readme in Git work. So change to the working directory Git work. Let's just open the task window as it suggests, and navigate to Git work. Well, we're in it already, so I'm not going to do that again. Now create a new directory to act as a Git repository for the demo. There's the instructions. Make directory test Git and then see what's in it. Space TESTGIT. And list the contents. That's the contents of the directory I'm in, which is demo, readme, and testgit. So that shows testgit has been created. Now change into the repository. CD ESTGI. Change directory to testgit and show the CSD to see where we are. Oh, that's going to use a star. Show the CSD, and it shows that we are in Git work test Git. So we are where we should be. Close that. That's the end of that section. We've set up a directory for the Git demo. Next, test that Git is working. Pretty easy. Issue a Git command. You've seen it already, but I'll do it again. And you can issue a Git version, and you can issue a Git status, although that will show something interesting. Control F12, and we're typing Git. And you have seen that before, but it's worthwhile having a look at this now in a bit more detail, so you can see these are the Git commands that this little Git client supports. And I'm going to be demonstrating add and commit, init, log, status, and well, it hasn't got, that's interesting, it hasn't got config in there. So this isn't a complete list of commands supported by Git, because he does support git config. What he does, this is over here, you see I've got the two Git clients side by side. Kevin has produced this user guide. And I just getting started. Now it says here you can get a pre-compiled version from AbiCat. Well, you can't. You might have done once, but it's gone. But you can see that link of mine to get it. I'm not going to go show all this, but basically Git help. You can get hold of this and read it. Cloning repositories, configuration settings, Appendix A, command reference. He now goes to all the command. I'll just shrink that back. Don't attempt to read this, but I'll just show that I can page through it. Add, branch, checkout, clone, commit, config, diff, fetch, file type, help, init, log, merge, pull, push, remote, reset, remove, status, tag, version. So that's in his user guide. Simple Git doesn't have a manual, but it does have a help text. And it has got, this is more like a standard help text showing differences in changelog, but it does reference a readme MD file in the app folder. So if I open that, this is equivalent to the manual. Right there it says, this is a very simple Git client based on libgit 2 with Amiga OS being the major target operating system. But they accept others because it uses testing. And that's quite comprehensive, and that's the commands and whatever. So back to the demonstration, which is back here. And that was saying Git will produce a list of Git commands, and there they are. You can also type Git version. Git version.
With 2 dashes, John.
Doesn't seem to mind, does he?
Oh, no, it doesn't.
It's interesting. Good point. I'll try it again with 2 dashes. Oh well, that's a discovery. I'll just try the same with sgit. I'll just try version there without dashes. You didn't mind either. using libgit 20277. And so Git is using a later version of libgit 2. He's using 28.4 and he's using 27.7. Enough of that. That's back to the next one is git status. Let me just try git status. And you get a message, fatal.
Yeah, exactly. I get that as well.
You're not in a Git repository, it's telling you. That's fair enough. If I try sgit, he says it's a libgit error. Couldn't find a repository from dot something. So it's the same thing. You can't do that from outside a repository. Fair enough. Once you know that, you won't try it again, except for demonstration purposes. Make test git into a Git repository. You need to do a git init. So I do a Control F12 folder. I'll have big icons on that. Star CSD. And we're in test git already, which is this one. Now I'm going to open that and you can see it's empty. And I'll type a ls and it's empty. Right, GITINIT. This will initialize the directory we're in. Not that won't, no. This will initialize the directory that we're working in and make it a Git directory. And there it says, it tells you what it's done. Before, remember last time it said fatal. This time it says we're on branch. We're not on any branch, but at least it knows it's in Git. ls here to see what's in this directory. You can see it's made. You can't tell that's a directory, but it is a directory. So if I say,
John, if you do ls-a, isn't that the command that will give you the information which shows differentiates files from directories?
I think it's no, it's not. It's ls. If I do -lish, it's a magic formula from somewhere I've got, and then it's lish. That tells you everything it knows, I think.
Yeah, the D means directory.
That one there, that first D.
That first D. Yeah. Okay.
Splendid. Right, so it is a directory. So if I change to that directory, cd _ git, and now I'll just do I'll do that lish again. It shows you that it's created, well, 4 directories called hooks, info, objects and refs. It's got a config. That's a file, I guess. Doesn't say what type because this isn't RISC OS. And a description and a head. Those are in fact 3 text files and 4 directories. That's basically the Git environment that it uses to maintain all the changes that you make. So it just basically hides things away inside that _git. So cd ... will put me back in the test in the work directory again. Oh, so that's just a minute. Where am I? I'm inside test kit again. Yes, I went back. The next thing, Git configuration identity parameters. If you want to commit things, you have to set up some ID in the Git repository so that it can keep a track of who's done what. It's just one command, git config, and there's a couple of parameters, username and user email. You can do these locally, that's just for this repository, or you can set them globally, in which case he puts it in a config file. And it's local by default, as it says. So let me just do a Control F12. Make sure I'm in the right place. Yes, if you can see Git, then you're in the right place. We're inside test-git. So test-git is our repository, and I'm just going to say git config user dot name space anything you like. And it's done that, and I'll just recall that command and change username to user email. It doesn't check for a valid email, so you can put anything you like. I think it has to be a valid format, but it doesn't have to be necessarily a real email. Because this on to the next, which is create a new file in the working directory. Well, we know we're in the working directory, but I'll just check to make sure. Yeah, so I'm using the touch command here. Now I said on this cheat sheet I've got touch index HTML. I'm having a problem with dots and slashes at the moment, so I'm not going to put a dot in the file name. I'm just going to do touch space. If I do an ls now, I've got the two files now. One's called index, one's called git. Now, worth doing a status at this point, and it tells me that we're on an unknown, well, we're not on any branch. We're in Git, but not on a branch. And we've got one untracked file. Untracked files are just files that Git hasn't been told about.
John, shouldn't that index file be within _git?
No.
If that's what you're correct, or is that the file that you
No.
be?
_git is maintained by Git. It's Git's business.
Okay.
Not mine. No. _git is private to Git. That's where it keeps all its information.
Like its own index file.
Now, if we go, well, that's a good question though, because it's slightly confusing possibly. If we come outside the command line a minute and look at this one here, I'm waggling it, this folder, I'm going to get rid of that one for a minute. I'll get rid of that one, finish with that, and we'll get rid of that. Inside this folder, we've got index that we just created, which is empty, as you can see. And inside Git, we've got these things, and I don't think there's any reference to index in those.
It's worth noting, Doug, that on Linux, that Git directory will be .git, and it will be a hidden directory. So putting files you actually want to work on in a hidden directory isn't very useful.
Good point. I meant to mention that, Vince. If you go in, if you use sgit, it creates .gits, which show up in RISC OS as /gits. But Kevin has chosen to use _git, not /git. It's the old RISC OS file name problem.
Yeah, the reason I mentioned that is because obviously when you clone an existing repository like your RISCman, Hello World one, it actually puts those sort of files in config, description, fetch head, and head, but it also puts an index file in. So that's where I was getting confused. But as Vince has quite rightly pointed out, in effect, it's like on Windows. It's a files you shouldn't really be seeing.
I'll tell you what I'll do. I'm going to RM index and call it something else. TOUCH. Give me a name for a file.
RISC.
RICK. Okay, and there it has appeared. Now, obviously, that's not going to be inside Git.
Yeah.
Right. Now, that's done. Let's close that one. This was create a new file in the working directory. We've done that. And the next one is add a new file to the Git waiting room or status area, or what was it called? I can't see my own screen now.
Working directory.
Not the working directory. RISC is in the working directory. Staging area is the next place. So when you add it to the staging area, which is the next thing. Now, I'm suggesting I'm going to demonstrate using git add all, and that will pick up all the files that are waiting.
Have you got children in the room, Ralph?
Yeah, to the grandchildren.
Can you strangle them?
Hey? Yeah, I'm trying
Strangle
to.
them?
Mm.
No, just mute.
My granddaughter's watching you.
Right.
Minus minus ALL. You can in theory just add a file, but I'm just going to add all, and it's done it. So git status. It's changed now. You see, it says we're not on any branch yet.
And Queen Mia.
Got changes to be committed, and there's a new file there called RISC. So we have a new file called RISC. It's in the staging area. We're going to commit it. It's the next thing. Admit the file to the Git repository. So it's finally getting into the repository with a git commit. So I'll just do it straight away. git space commit space. Now you've got to give a message. I think it's dash message actually. On some clients it supports -m, but ShriekGit doesn't. You've got to spell message in full, and then the message. And if you try it without a message, try it without a message, and it says it won't do it. So we'll call it back and we'll say -m, quote, it won't do it again, and an option M. But if you do as it says in the manual, quote, first file, and it's done it. And now we're finally in business. We're on the branch called master, and it's got something in it. Show git log. And there we are. And this is the key thing, this line here that says commit. That is the version number of our repository. And you can see here it's picked up the author John with the email of armex6@risco.org and a date. And the message that I put in add first file is in the repository. That is the end of the demo. I said I wasn't going to go on to GitHub, which requires a push. I could have done just the same on the Mac with the same command. So it is, I think, worthwhile playing with the RISC OS version and finding out what works and what doesn't work so would help other people. And we might even get Kevin to fix something.
Very, very good. Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Thanks, sir.
Oh, I need a cup of tea now.
You deserve it.
Is that all then, John? Nothing else?
What?
You don't need anything else then?
Do I need anything else? Oh, a cup of tea? Well, no, not till 6 o'clock, Doug. When the sun is over the yard arm.
Yeah, no, that was really good, John. So, thank you for that.
I can take the hat off now. Before I take the hat off, just have a look at my screen there. If you could sort of pin my screen to your...
Which one?
The one with the reds and the oranges and the greens. Just do a pin on that.
The pretty one. I mean,
The pretty one.
Yeah.
That really, I think, sums up Git very nicely, really. So you've got your working directory, which is like any old directory that you've done a Git init on. And then you add stuff and it goes into this orange box, the staging area, and you can keep changing and adding and changing and adding. And when you're happy, you do a commit and it sort of goes into the actual repository. You can see from there you can take something out of the repository and put it back in your working directory, and it should reinstate stuff in the working directory. It should delete files and bring files back. And that's as far as I've got then. But then you go on to the blue bit. If you want to do it remotely, you can do a git push, which pushes all of your repository up to the remote place. The person in charge of the remote place then has to do a pull if he likes it, and does a pull and does a diff to compare what you've pushed up with what he's got already. If he's happy with it, he I forgot what he does now, but he says yes to it basically, and then it goes in. That's where a lot of the problems have been between Rule and people doing development to RISC OS. People have got as far as getting repositories and doing a push, and Rule have said can't incorporate it for one reason or another. But on the very bottom there, you can do a pull right down from a remote repository into a working directory. I think you can pull individual items, or you can do a clone which takes the whole lot. I think that's the way it works. So I think if you look at that picture, that does make the whole process of Git a bit less mysterious.